Gaming Theologian channel. I am Nick Peters, and I'm here with you, and we're starting a new game tonight. It's going to be one of my favorite Final Fantasy, actually, Final Fantasy IV. Yeah, this is going to be the Pixar remaster version. When this game first came out in America, it was known as Final Fantasy II. Now, at the time, most of us in the West did not know, including myself, that there had been two other Final Fantasies that had been released in the meantime. So, we was all the rage when this one came out, and I was one of the kids who got it on Christmas morning. So, we start with the crew of this airship flying to the Kingdom of Baron with the guy Cesar here, our character, in charge. Captain seems kind of down after what we did. Who wouldn't be? Orders are orders, but killing innocent people to get the crystals isn't right. And now we come with a flashback scene. And in this scene, the soldiers, where you can see what's happening. Some reason they let this guy live. All to get this crystal. And this is the point I think that changes things. See, in the original version, the elder asks why they're doing this, and Cesar pauses. And Cesar is now trying to tell his crewmen, who aren't very happy with what we've done, that the Mysidians knew too much about the crystals, and their possession of them was a threat. So, when the king says, take it, they have to take it. Monsters dead ahead, and let's see if I've only gone for Pixel Remaster once, yeah. See, this one is done auto battle, which in the original game you saw me use those cool items in battle. You never found them. Found them when they came up, and we've already got some people in the chat. You know, these items, sadly, they never showed up in the game. Well, the Red Fang did show up at one point, but I don't remember this one showing up at all. And this was the first Final Fantasy that really had a significant story to it. The first one had a story, the first one we got, but it was pretty basic. This one, you'll see there's a whole lot of interaction that takes place. It looks like someone in chat saying they're a NOLA loker. For those who don't know, I am in New Orleans doing this. And this is Bagan, and Cesar's admitting his concerns about what's happening to him. And Bagan's going to talk to the king in private and telling him that Cecil can't be trusted because he questions the king's authority. Now, what I'm wondering... Oh, I'll just finish these scenes here. But before Cecil can leave, he has to ask about why this is going on. And now Cecil is relieved of his being in charge of the Red Wings, their Air Force ship. And he's told to deliver a bomb ring to the Valley of Mist. And at this point, his friend Kane comes in to defend him and is told, if you're so concerned, go with him. Now, in the original game, this was called a package. That was it. So, as we wander around here and talk to the, here's just popping up with the controls are. As we wander around here and talk to the people, what I was going to say about this whole thing is guilt and shame are very different concepts. And this works with us when we read the Bible as well. Because we live in a culture that is very much guilt focused. And we assume the Bible is the same way, and that the culture of the Bible is the same way. Well, but when I read the Bible, I see the word guilt showing up in there often. Yes, you do. But when the Bible talks about guilt, it means an objective guilt, in that are you guilty of a crime, for instance. It does not mean an emotional interior feeling of guilt. And this is where we meet Cecil's girlfriend, Rosa. And Cecil is not very pleased to tell her about what's happened. And then this is where we meet Sid, the engineer of Baron, who's concerned about his airships being used as weapons. And saying the king's been acting peculiar for a while. So, in the ancient world, and even in many modern Eastern cultures today, a person does not experience sorrow, the idea of doing something wrong, until someone else tells them they've done something wrong that's been displeasing to the group and society as a whole. And Cecil going to sleep at night. And he says that the king was the one who raised him and Cain as their own, as his very own, and that he and Cain adored the king since childhood. And here comes Rosa, who wants him to look at her. And then he tells her that they killed innocent people to get the crystal, and that this is his fate as a dark knight, and soon he won't feel remorse for his actions. To which she says, we know that will never happen. And he says he's a hopeless coward. And she says, "For Cecil, I know would never whimper like this. For Cecil, I love." And she's concerned about his trip, and he gives her reassurance, which, let me tell you, ladies, if you're listening here, you have no idea how much your belief in a man can empower him, encourage him, motivate him. You let a man know you see him as a man and he's ready to climb mountains. In turn, as one who's divorced, there's little more demotivating than that, as that's the ultimate rejection from a woman. Now, this is one of the most beautiful scenes in Final Fantasy IV, telling the story of how it all starts here. Anyway, as I was saying, though, consider the story of King David. He sends Uriah out to battle after he gets his wife pregnant while she's away, and when he sends to have Uriah come back, Uriah is actually a more honorable man than King David is, and refuses to go home to his wife while his fellow men are out there dying on a battlefield. And where David's already got his wife pregnant, so he says, "Well, I guess I have no choice." And he sends Uriah out into battle there and tells Joab, "Put him on the front lines and then fall back." And that's what happens. And Uriah is killed. And David, in a pure act of comfort, takes Bathsheba as his wife to raise the child that's been born to him. There was no indication of any guilt on David's part. He wants things covered up, but as far as he's concerned, he's an innocent man. Until Nathan shows up, who tells him a parable about a rich man who had several sheep, and a poor man who had one that was like a pet to the family. And the people here in the town aren't really too happy to see Cecil. Like that lady just tells him, "I pay my taxes." Anyway, the poor man has one sheep that's like a pet to the whole family, where the rich man has someone come in from out of town, and rather than go with one of his own sheep, he takes the poor man's and kills it and offers it to his guest. And David is enraged with anger and says, "This is a path that's normally supposed to lead to Mysidia, but is sealed and can't be used." And now if I wanted to, I could rename my character here, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to do that with everyone, and then this is the tragedy here, that where I don't have anyone I can really name Cecil's love interest right now. Unfortunately, you can't go into a weapon shop. No, it seems like a terrible way to stay in business. Anyway, David hears the story. Rosa's mother, protecting her as always, and says, "The man who did this must pay 4 times over." And that's when Nathan says those famous words to him of, "You the man." It's a dancing scene. You can't get out of it once it starts. And that's when David realizes he's done something wrong. And he repents. That's when we get Psalm 51. And David did, in essence, pay 4 times over for this. 3 of his sons died. His daughter was shamed, which was pretty much a death in that day. The point we're getting at is ancient cultures don't experience things like we do, Eastern cultures. They didn't live with an internal feeling of guilt, making them think something was right or wrong. And your standing in society was determined by other people. You had, as it were, social credit. When we read the Gospels, this is why Jesus was such a threat to the people. Because, and by the people I mean the ruling class. Ow, ow, ow. Let's face it, every man has touched something like that before, and it's led to hurt, but he just had to touch it. Anyway, when Jesus goes up against the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he regularly bests them in debate. And this is something known as a challenge riposte. Now, before I tell you what challenge riposte is, I'm going to explain better in these games. The system here that was used for the first time that we knew of was known as the active time battle system, where your characters had a bar indicating when they could perform an action. And when that time came up, they got to perform whatever action they want, and their opponents also would have an active bar system that they would go with, which you can't see, and whenever their turn came up, they got an action. And if you got stronger than your opponents or more, you got more actions than they did. It was a really neat system, instead of just entering a bunch of commands and watching a turn play out. And if you chose some action that could take some time, you spent time preparing for it, such as, say, casting a spell. Anyway, so when Jesus humiliates the Pharisees and the others in public, what he's doing is he is taking their honor from them and building up his honor. That's why they actually in the end crucify him, because he's winning the favor of the crowd. And crucifixion was not done just to kill someone, although it did do that. It was done to shame them as well. And the idea was, if Jesus was crucified, he could not possibly be the Messiah, because God's Messiah would never be shamed that way. And Cicero just gained a level. Yay! At least that was the intent. Now, those of us who are Christians, we know the story turns out differently, and that Jesus endures the shame, takes it all away, and when he is resurrected, that is God vindicating him and saying that yes, Jesus is the one I have chosen. It's the reverser. The thing is, we in the West have lost sight of this. We go more by guilt, innocence, and it's internal. And really, your emotions, I contend, are a horrible way to know right from wrong. Because some people can do things that are horrible and feel perfectly right doing them. And other people can do things that are perfectly fine and feel intense guilt for them. Because your emotions really stem from your thinking. It is not God trying to tell you something when you feel something very strongly. That is just your brain thinking. And when it reaches a certain point, something happens that you have a response we call an emotion. Now, Cain's special ability been using here is jump. It allows him to miss a turn, but he deals far more damage when he comes down. It's an exchange you make. I use it on enemies like the sword rats, because if you don't deal enough damage to kill them, then they counter with an attack. Cesar's, on the other hand, is called darkness, something that didn't exist in the original game, in that he sacrifices some of his hit points to deal damage to all enemies on screen. Your emotions will not tell you what's right and wrong. For instance, I know as one who grew up in church with the silver ring thing going on, where the talk was about the encouraging young people in the church to save sex for marriage. 100%. I back that. I support that message. I saved sex for my marriage before it happened, and I have remained chaste ever since the divorce. I've only been with one woman in all my life, so I stand by that idea. Now you can set this to auto battle, which I'd forgotten, which also makes things move quicker, and that wasn't a feature in the original Final Fantasy. But, anyway, yeah, so don't get this as me saying I don't support the message of saving sex for marriage. I do. But I still remember where going to one at a church I attended in Tennessee, a silver ring thing, and I was a college age guy at the time in Bible college, and the associate pastor got up and gave a message for the kids there. We're talking about teenagers pretty much, and saying, if you have sex outside of marriage, it's going to be for selfish reasons. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I can agree with that. And he says, you need to think about some other things. What if you get pregnant? What if you get an STD? Think about the guilt you will feel. Think about what you'll have to tell a future spouse on a wedding night that you didn't wait for them. Think about what you might have to tell your parents. All these things, and I'm listening, I'm saying inside, Pastor, maybe it's just me, but those sound like selfish reasons also. And as I've said before, the more he kept going on about this, I was getting bored. And pastors, I'll just be blunt as I can when I talk about this. Say, if you are giving a message about sex and you have a college guy in the audience and he is getting bored, you are doing it wrong. Okay? But one of the things he did say, like I said, was think of the guilt you'll feel. Well, problem is, some people don't feel guilt. Some people who say they're Christians, even, they do not feel guilt afterwards. And if you make feeling guilt the requirement, then they're going to say, I wonder what else the church was wrong about. When, for us, the idea of right and wrong we usually think of coming from inside of us, when really it should come from outside. From natural revelation, what can be known about morality. And no, you don't have to know the Bible to know right from wrong. You just have to be capable of thinking. The Bible tells us things are right and wrong, but it's not giving new information we didn't know before, such as it's not the case that the Israelites are wandering in the wilderness. Then they get the Ten Commandments and say, oh my gosh, we gotta stop this murder thing, it's wrong. They already knew it was wrong. Cain knew it was wrong to murder his brother. Moses looked both ways before he killed the Egyptian. They knew it was wrong. When we base morality on how we feel about things, then we become the ultimate arbiters of what is right and wrong. And all we're discussing at that point is we're discussing our emotional reactions with one another. That's it, nothing more. Now, what I'm doing here, by the way, is what's called grinding, because I'm a completionist. And if you beat enough goblins, you get an item. Is it some great super powerful item? No, it's pretty much absolutely useless. But I get it because I'm a completionist. Now, yeah, I should also show you all something else that's in this game here. I don't. Yeah, should I, these are chocobos, which are now a staple in pretty much any Final Fantasy game. And this one will refill your magic points, and these you can get them right on, and they can go anywhere you can walk and in light water. But if you try and take them to the ocean, for instance, well, that's a no. But I don't want to do anything with them right now, so we're going to just leave them at that. So anyway, all you do at that point then is you argue emotions. And that doesn't help our case. Because, let's see, why should your emotions hold more validity than mine, if that's so? So you feel like something is wrong. Okay, I don't. Why should I go with what you're experiencing instead of what I'm experiencing? And this is another problem we have in our culture, in that we use the words think and feel like they're synonyms. They are not. If you want to know if this is happening, just listen to TV shows, listen to news reports, listen to political commentators, listen to the man on the street. How many times do they say the word fear? Oh, I forgot you could set it to run, as if it were a synonym for think. Answer, too often. They are not the same. Thinking refers to what's going on in your head. Feeling refers to the bodily response you have to the thinking that's going on in your head. If you have emotions that are out of control, the solution is to get control of your thinking. largely. Now, I'm not denying you could need some help with that. Heck, I take anxiety medication even, and I think therapy is something excellent if you really need it. But your emotions are not God speaking to you. You do not find that in the text of Scripture at all. So, what I ultimately want to do is when you're going through Scripture, try to remember it's written for you, but it's not written to you. And be very cautious. And here you hear a voice telling us to turn back. Be very cautious about reading your culture into Scripture. There are some excellent books on this. Misreading Scripture with Western eyes and with individualist eyes are both excellent reads, and I would recommend you start your journey with those. If we read our culture into the biblical text, we will ultimately misread the text. So now then, I'm going to just talk about the Final Fantasy game here since we've had our lesson for today, which if you guys like seeing Final Fantasy, like I've said, this is my favorite Final Fantasy game of all of them. Yes, even more than 7. I've got access to the majority of them on the Switch. The only ones I don't have on here are the mainline games, that is, are 11, 13, 14, and 16. And I don't have the remakes on Switch. I wish I did, but I think I need at least a Switch 2 for that. Being told to leave at once. And let's talk about the Phantom Beast of Mist Valley. Now, I think I need at least a Switch 2 for that, which I don't have. But if anyone out there feels very generous, you can always come here. Which also always, people, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And do consider supporting me on Patreon as well. That allows me to get more material that I can use and more time so that I can be doing things like this with you all. And no, I don't spend all my time playing video games. I do a whole lot of reading during the day as well, and I wish I had more time for that. Your donations go a long way to helping me out with this. Now, we're still fighting goblins because I want to get something special from them. And this is something I do every time I play Final Fantasy IV. Which goblins are pretty much the weakest enemies in the game. In the original game, they were called imps. And a friend of mine and I who used to play this game together regularly said you should just put a W in front of their name and it'd be a whole lot more accurate. And this area is pretty much kind of sort of a training ground for you to learn the game. Now, the flying eyes here are really the toughest regular enemy in the cave, and we're already tearing through them. Now, I do plan to stop around the top of the hour, sometime around there. Hopefully I can get Goblin before then. Because next time we play this game, I already know the message I'm going to be talking about for that. And also, just so you know, next week my folks are actually coming into town. So they're going to be seeing me for a weekend, so I don't suspect I'll be doing any live streaming then. So you'll just have to wait here. So I want to make sure you all remember when we talk about honor and shame that you really need to see the crucifixion in light of shame when we talk about it, because Jesus really did overcome the greatest shame of his time when he came back from the dead. The very thought of a crucified Messiah would make as much sense as saying, hey, oh, a pedophile becoming the Pope, for instance. Once you were crucified, that was it. There's no need to talk about you, because for a Jew, you were under the curse of God. For a Gentile, you were a traitor to Rome. And for either group there, when you became a Christian, you are actually claiming to identify with Jesus, to which the world would say you're identifying with a crucified man. And more often than not, they would be very happy to make sure you join him in shame. Not that every Christian was killed, but they'd say, hey, you want to be shamed? We're shamed you. And yes, the other Christians were shamed. On this ground, I recommend reading my ministry partner J.P. Holdings' book, The Impossible Faith, because he makes a powerful argument that Christianity should have died out. But the only reason it survived was it was a true faith, because everything it did was considered shameful at the time, essentially. It had everything against it at the start. And this book was so powerful, someone paid Richard Carrier $5,000 to write a response to it. And JP did write a response to Carrier after that, and that response was never responded to, so he still has the final word on the whole thing. It's a very powerful argument, one we do not consider enough, and we need more honor shame studies going on. When you see a commentary on the Bible that's socio-rhetorical, for instance, it's talking about the culture of the Bible and honor and shame. And again, please stop listening to your emotions as if you think that's how God's communicating with you. The best way you will find God communicates with you is through Scripture. Scripture is the one source that you know comes from God if you're a Christian and has authority. Your emotions are not that. Yeah, I'm checking every time these guys drop items, because I'm hoping I'm going to get the items soon that the goblins drop. My plan is to see if I can get that before too long, and then fight the Mist Dragon, and then we'll go to a stopping point for the next time. So as we go through this game, you're going to find more and more as I tell the story of the game, why it is my favorite one. There it is, the goblin item. We'll find out what that does next time. But for now, leave now or suffer the consequences. You choose to ignore my warnings? Yes. And the mist gathers. The first boss in the game is the Mist Dragon, mainly meant to teach you how battles go here, because frankly, he's not doing a lot of damage here. The dragon turns into mist. Now, if you attack the dragon at this point, he gives a counter mist attack that damages both of you. And does pretty significant damage, so I wait. It doesn't happen though when you use the jump for some reason. Don't know why. And I love the soundtrack here, but it's the game's story that I love the most about this, which has a theme I consider extremely important. Dragon turned into mist again. Well, I guess he does counter in the Pixel remasters. It's not clear who's speaking here at that point. Let's wait for this guy to pull himself together here. And we should finish him off soon. And there you go. The first boss is beat. And now we can go to the Village of Mist and deliver the package. And here's the village. And we'll find out what happens next time. For now, I'm Nick Peters, the gaming theologian, and I affirm the virgin birth, and I